Hello. So I just wanted to welcome Rev Deb Connor to Transformational Painting. Before I hand over to Deb, I just wanted to go through just a few notices, which is very exciting that we actually have notices. So I just wanted to remind people that the book project, the submissions are open. We are receiving submissions already, which we're very grateful for. Thank you so much for the people who have. I will be sharing links in the YouTube description, so I won't worry about the chat today. Um, and without any further ado, I think we'll jump straight into it if you're okay with that, Rev Deb.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and thank you, Reverend Seth, and to Osmic and all the Osmic members for inviting me to do this 1 hour session on transformational painting. So I'm just going to share my screen, and then we can dive into all that transformational painting is. Okay, so this is a presentation recorded on the 14th of June 2023, and it's for One Spirit Ministers in Connection, and we are looking at transformational painting. So what to expect in this session? We're not going to be getting our aprons on and painting together in this session, although I do run online sessions where indeed we do paint as a group. So all the information that you need to try this method of transformational painting at your own pace and in your own space, everything is going to be included here in this presentation. The recording will be made available on YouTube via Osmic, so thank you to Reverend Sass and Osmic for doing that. This is a polite reminder that what I share here is for your own personal use. And I do have more detailed workshops that cover this technique in more depth, both online and in person. But you will have everything you need at the end of this presentation, everything that you need to go away and have a go. And of course, I'd love to hear how you get on. I'll just explain a little bit about me. I know many of you know me. So I'm Rev Deb Connor. I'm a One Spirit Interfaith Foundation minister. I'm also a 22nd generation Dragon Gate Taoist monk. I was a Taoist priest and transitioned to become a monk. My Taoist name is Li Shaoyi, which means smiling expression. I'm a creativity coach and an abstract artist, and I sell my abstract art worldwide. I'm a journal therapist, creator of the online programs The Creative Spiritual Quest and Arts for Awakening, and I'm the founder of the Creative Spirit community. I'm a visual medicine facilitator and also the author of The Little Book of Tao, the 12-step colouring book, and the soon-to-be published, which has been a beautiful creative spiritual quest of my own, the contemplative translation of the Tao Te Ching in words and art. So transformational painting, how it began. And just to say, any of the images that you see in this presentation, they are all my own original artwork. Yeah, how it began. Well, I knew that I was carrying around lots of stories that I need to let go of. Those old narratives that replay, I know I'm not the only one, that replay, that I would notice, that I would rehash into different forms of the same story. And those patterns would come up for me again and again. And I'm not saying that transformational painting is the only way to let go of those stories and narratives, but it's certainly a way that I've found to be deeply transformative and really gentle, which I think is why I love it. Healing and transformation doesn't have to be like really dramatic. It might be that, and you know, there's certainly some times where that's exactly perhaps what we need, and also there's those times where we need something that feels more gentle. So yeah, it was created, I developed this, and it came to me and through me through a need, my own need to let go of stories that weren't serving me. I had a deep inner knowing that gentle change and a gentle and smooth transformation was absolutely possible. And a huge love of creative practice as a spiritual practice and as inner cultivation. So that's how it began to emerge with my own experimentations. So transformational painting is, in a nutshell, is painting the story or the narrative that we want to transform, and then painting that transformation while still allowing the lessons and the learning from whatever story or narrative or experience or situation that we had originally. We want the learning and the lesson to come through, and we want to take that forward. And that's my greyhound you can hear in the background, who's clearly got an opinion on this, has an opinion on everything, I should say. So if I don't take the learning and the lesson forward, the same situation, the same experience, the same pattern is just going to reoccur and reoccur and reoccur until I have done the work that's required to really embody that learning and that lesson, and then I'm going to be able to move forward. So that's really what transformational painting is about. So I've got a video here of this is a time-lapse video, as we've only got an hour today and I want to leave plenty of time for questions. I've done a time-lapse video of me painting my story. So this is stage one, and I'm going to go through all the materials that you need as well, because you don't need any artistic or art experience, you don't need any previous skill. You can get the equipment and get on with it. You can have a go. I don't believe in such a thing as talent. I think when people say, oh, there's an artistic talent that some people are born with, and so some people can paint and other people can't. I don't believe that. We can all create, we can all paint in our own way, whatever that means for us. And we all have our own voice, so we're all meant to paint in our own way. So this is a video of me painting the story, the narrative that I wanted to release and let go of. And for the purposes of this demonstration, it doesn't matter what that story was. So here I'm painting on a piece of plywood that's 12 inches by 12 inches, just to give you the scale. And I'm using acrylic paint. So acrylic paint is really good for this practice. It's what you'll need because it works so well. So this is a time-lapse speeded up version. So what I'm doing here is I'm tuned into that experience or that story, and I'm just allowing that to guide what is happening on this wood panel. So you can see I'm putting paint direct on there. This is undiluted acrylic paint. You can use a heavy body acrylic or you can use a lighter one. And I'm just doing whatever I feel, to me, is representative of my story. I'm pressing another board on it to take some of the paint off. I'm pressing a board on that's got extra paint on. Just whatever I feel is, for me, descriptive of that experience, that narrative, that story. This is what I want to transform. So this is getting it down first. And it only has to make sense to me. It doesn't have to look like a pretty picture. It doesn't have to be created in a way that somebody else can look at it and say, oh, yes, I see what experience you had there. Ah, yes. That doesn't matter. I've just tuned into the experience and I'm allowing the creation to happen. And as you can see, I'm using my fingers, I'm throwing paint on the board, I'm using a squeegee that I got from a pound shop. That's a serrated ruler I was using there. I use my fingers a lot when I'm painting in general, but particularly when I'm doing this practice. Turning it round to add in other perspectives. That was a piece of an old Hoover that I was using to make patterns there. Anything that I can pick up and I can use to paint with and I keep going until I feel, yes, what I've got down here on the wood panel, on the canvas, whichever I'm using, that represents the story, the narrative, the experience, the situation that I want to transform. And that's going to take me as long as it takes. I'm painting wet on wet with acrylic paint. So the wet paint is going straight over other wet paint, which is how it becomes just so beautifully, a beautiful mess is how I would describe it. And then once I've got to the point where I feel I'm done, and that's my feeling, doesn't have to be anybody else's, and it makes sense to me as a representation of my story, my situation, my narrative that I'm wanting to transform. That is the point that I will then stop and allow that to dry. Now, acrylic paint is great because it dries really quickly, which means I don't have to then wait weeks and weeks for it to dry, or days and days. I'll create a painting like this, and in the climate that I'm in, I'll go back into my studio the following day, and that'll be dry and ready to work with. I don't always then go to the transformation process immediately. What I often like to do as part of this transformational painting process is then sit with that piece of artwork that I've created and ask it questions. So I'll even set out a chair for it. I'll put it on the chair. I'll sit opposite with it. Taoists love a tea ceremony, so I'll often make tea and I'll pour 2 cups of Chinese tea, and I give set one by the painting, and I'll have one myself, and it's like being in conversation with my painting. I can ask it questions and see if am I ready to transform this story, this narrative. That's a really good question to ask. And I'll do some journaling around that. So when I have the conversation with the painting, I'm sitting with it, and then I'll journal about it after that. So that's stage 1. And you can see this is a different painting. So this is on a large canvas. And this is then stage 2 of transformation, or you could say stage 3. Stage 1, paint the story. Stage 2, sit with that painting, have a conversation with it. And then stage 3, so this is demo 2, is then transforming that narrative. So here's a painting that I'd previously created that was an expression of a particular experience that I really wanted to transform the narrative, let go of the story that I was telling myself, and move forward to take the lessons from that and have a new narrative and a new perspective on that. So this is an acrylic painting on canvas, and it represents the story that I'm wanting to transform. And what you'll see is I'm actually painting over it. So I've got again, acrylic paint. It's undiluted. It's fluid acrylic paint, but I could use heavy-bodied acrylic paint. So it is quite solid. And I'm painting over this in a particular way. I go into more depth on that on other workshops. For the purpose of trying this practice at home, you can literally get another colour. So paint your story with colours that you feel represent that story. And then when you're trying this for the first time, you're probably best to try then just one single darker colour and just paint over the whole painting. So as One Spirit ministers, of course, we're tuning into what we're doing. We're taking a moment before we start that transformational over painting to say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to be ready. I'm willing to be willing. I'm going to transform this narrative. You can paint over your story painting, if we want to call it that, in one single colour. And while then the acrylic paint is still wet, so the paint underneath is dry, the paint we've put on top is still wet. And then what you can see is I'm scraping away areas of the paint. And what I'm using to do that is a plastic ruler. I'm using the short width of a plastic ruler. You could use anything. You could use a spoon. You could use your fingernails, but you will get a lot of paint down your fingernails. You could use a wallpaper scraper. You can use anything that will provide a scraping action. Because the acrylic paint is still wet, it will come off quite easily. And I'm just allowing myself to be intuitively guided through this process. And the canvas is actually bigger than my overhead camera. So I am actually doing quite a lot of work around the border of this painting, which doesn't unfortunately show on the screen there. But you can see what I've done is I haven't completely denied that experience or that previous narrative. I'm transforming it rather than covering it over completely. So I'm not covering it and forgetting about it. I'm transforming it. I'm painting over it, and then I'm allowing some of the previous painting to show through. And this symbolizes the learning and the lessons that we're taking from that experience that we want to transform. So you can see how different that is now to the original. We started here, and that was what the story looked like. And then we end here, and it looks very different. So to try this at home, and I really encourage you to just have a go. You'll need a canvas. For some things, I work on a wooden panel. Literally, I buy some plyboard, I cut it into 12 by 12 squares because they're nice and easy to work with. Or you can just go into a cheap art supplies retailer. Doesn't have to be a really expensive canvas. Here in the UK, we have a shop called The Works, where there's a physical store and an online store. I don't get anything for mentioning them. I just mention them because they are on the high street and they do have an online store, and they are really inexpensive. You can buy a pre-gessoed canvas, for as little as £4 there, or if you want a really big one, it's about £12. So start off with a canvas. They're slightly easier to work on. Some acrylic paint, any grade, student grade, graduate grade, studio grade. Student and graduate much cheaper than studio grade. Just the level of pigment in them is different. So you need some acrylic paint, and then you need some painting tools, and that can be anything that you can spread paint with. So your painting tools might be your hands, or it might be a household implement that you have lying around and you don't mind getting paint all over. Now, acrylic paint, while it's wet, you can wash it off. Once it dries, it becomes permanent. So be mindful if you get it on something that you don't wish it to stay on. If you're painting on the kitchen table and the paint goes on the table, give that a wipe off and a wash off while it's still wet, unless you want your kitchen table to have the memory of your transformational painting, of course. You'll also want some sort of scraping tool. That could be an artist's palette knife. It could be kitchen knife, just a not a sharp one, just a like a an ordinary food knife. It can be, I was using a plastic ruler. It can be a paint scraper, whatever you've got to hand. So you don't really need to buy loads and loads of equipment to have a go at this practice. And as One Spirit Interfaith Foundation ministers, I know that we all know everything that we need to transform is already inside us. Our inner wisdom knows what to release and what learning to take forward. So this practice of transformational painting it's an embodied practice, because we're moving our body while we paint, and it's a symbol of that letting go. For sure, there's also other ways to do this. This is a creative way that I love, and I really love to share with people. So have a go. Everything you need to have a go at transformational painting on its very basic level is included in this presentation. You do not need any particular artistic experience. You don't have to have been to art school. You don't need any particular skills. Just have a go. Please just have a go. It's a bit like kind of learning to swim. If you read, you can read every book on learning to swim. You can watch a load of YouTube videos on learning to swim. You can speak to 1,000 swimming coaches. At some point, you've got to get in the water and try it. Otherwise, you're not really going to have the experience of swimming. And it's the same with this, like watch this video, have a go. And please do get in touch and let me know how you get on. We've got time for some questions now, but also, get in touch if you've got any additional questions. And if you do want to go deeper into this practice, and there's, this is the basic, what you need to know to have a go and get started. There's a lot more to it that I've developed over the years. I do run both online and in-person transformational painting workshops. And there is a new, by popular demand, transformational painting facilitators training, if anybody is interested in adding transformational painting to their current skill set, or indeed to their ministry. So that, in a nutshell, dear ones, is transformational painting. And the painting that you saw in the video is actually this one that's behind me, which it's always quite difficult to show them on camera. But you can see I did a lot more work around the edges than perhaps was shown on the video. So covering some of that up, I'm just turning it round so you can see the edges, working close to the edge, working there. So yeah, you might hazard a guess that was something about boundaries. Here's one on a smaller canvas, which I haven't yet found a light that really displays this, because it's quite dark. I will send a photograph of this one that Rev Sass will be able to, I'm sure, attach to the email that goes out to Osmic members. And that one, if you look closely, you can see a figure within it. I'll just show you this small one as well. Now, this is one of the slightly different techniques of transformational painting, which is a bit of an extra that we go into on some of the longer workshops. And you can see these cracks here. So when we cover over, we're allowing the paint to crack and seeing what comes through from the learning and the story. So that is what I wanted to share with you. And if there are any questions now, we are recording. So if you want, when you ask a question, if you prefer not to be on camera, then you can just switch your camera off. If you prefer your name not to be on, then if you just take your name off before you ask your question. If you're happy to be on camera, then that's great. So yeah, any questions? Car, yeah, hi.
Yeah, I'm tentatively coming on just in case the dogs bark. I'll have to turn it off again because the scaffolders going doing their business next door. And I'm just looking at your piece of art, and if you tip that the other way, it looks like lots of yachts in the water on the edge of a. Can you see that? You tip it that way, then yeah, you can see all the buildings at the dock, and the other way. Can you see the boats and the people and I think that, yeah. Now I would have that on my wall. It's beautiful, and I'm just trying to think of lots of this. There are lots of formats for using this kind of inspirational art, and I think it could be something for putting families together with the children, with the adults, to put it all together and have something creational. And I'm with a study group on a course in miracles, and there is so much inspiration that you can get from using the book, the ACIM book, letting go of grievances and moving forward, or getting into the instant. So we're leaving the past and the future behind, and it's as Saf said, it's just you want to get your paints out. I've got so many acrylics, but I've never done this kind of work. It's always been a bit more intricate, so it'd be good. Do you use the palette painting? Do you use the stuff for getting the acrylics on? You know, like looks like a small blade, doesn't it? Is it what's the name of the tool? It's like a triangle. Is it?
So you can use whatever tools you want. So you could use, like, it sounds like you're describing a palette knife. But you'll see in the demo I'm using a squeegee. Okay. Which is just, I think I got it in the 99p store or something like that. I'll often apply paint with these plastic scrapers that I think were in Wilkinson. I use my hands an awful lot to paint with. So just getting and I like, if I'm painting in a different way, so not this transformational painting, if I'm doing a piece of art that is going to go to a gallery and it's going to be offered for sale, then I have a palette where my colors are and where I'm color mixing. Yeah. For this, I put the paint directly onto the canvas. Yeah. I just squeeze it on and then I start creating with it. And to come back to what you were saying about what you can see here, everybody is going to see something different, because it's always going to speak to us in different ways. Yeah. And it's interesting because somebody will say, oh, I can see this or I can see that, and then often, like, other people say, oh, I didn't see that until you mentioned it, and now I can see it. Yeah. And for sure there'll be stuff that other people will say, oh gosh, I'd love that on my wall. Is it for sale? Yeah. So I have sold pieces that have been part of my transformational painting work. Yeah. And in some ways it's almost like it's the final piece of of transformation, and then letting the whole thing go.
Well, it's a great way to like writing the letter and then putting it in the fire afterwards. You've
Yes,
got something tangible that you can look at, which has brought you out of that situation, into something moving forward. And the other thing was that those lovely pictures at the end of your PowerPoint display, were they the more fluid ones where you use the whether you use more oils and spin and do things like that, move the board, and they were more marble like? It's a certain type of painting, isn't it?
Let me have a look at which ones were at the end.
I think I've seen it, and people doing demonstrations. The very last one.
Oh, the very last one where it says, "Do you want to go?"
Yeah, it's more deeper? Like very marbly.
Okay, so this I'll just share the screen so that you can see. Was it that one?
Yes, that type of thing. Yes.
Yeah. So this is again transformational. Oh, I've managed to share the end of the slideshow.
Oh, don't worry too much.
We got a glimpse of it. We got a glimpse of it, didn't we? Yeah, this one is again, this is a form of transformational painting. This is something that I go into in the workshops, or would be teaching on the facilitator training if you were interested in going deeper in that way. So yeah, this is working with cracking. So again, it's creating a painting and then overpainting it, but overpainting it in such a way with consistency of paint and then drying it in a way that means it'll crack. So yeah, that's a slightly different form of transformational painting. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah, I think Susan, you put your hand up just slightly before Karen. So if we come to Susan and then Karen.
Okay. Well, I'm just wondering if you ever use other media, and I'm used to working with pastels, chalk pastels, for instance, in my practice, which is using music and imagery. And well, my practice, my profession, part of my profession. So I'm just wondering if you ever do that, or whether it's not fluid enough, you can't cover enough.
Yeah, you can cover in different ways. And the reason that I recommend acrylics for this practice, and particularly starting this practice, is that it's really easy to work with. And it's easy to cover something that's dry and then scrape it back and allow that what needs to come through of the previous story, to allow that to come through. With some mediums, when you cover them up, it's hard to then take that layer off. Possible if you have the experience and the skills to take some of that off. I think for anybody who's beginning, or if you want to have gentle transformation that is also fast, because you can work fast with acrylic medium because it dries quickly, then that's why I recommend that for this practice. I do use other mediums in different things that I teach and do with my clients and in my own practice. Sometimes I'll collage over the top of something. Yeah,
it's very. Oh, there's a big echo. Is that me, or can you hear that echo? I just thank you very much. I mean, I've got something going on, something quite major going on for myself at the moment, and I'm itching to just. I think this would just be a way of going past my normal routines or normal practices to do something new like this would be a really helpful thing to explore. So thank you.
You're so welcome, Susan. And absolutely, yeah, sometimes to just do something differently, it's just what was being called for, isn't it? And so, yeah, you clearly called in this this session of transformational painting. So, yeah, thank you from all of us, me included, for calling it in, and then Sass for organising it. Thank you. Karen.
Yeah, my question links in really nicely with Susan's because it's also a bit technical. I would like to know what can be done if there is no time to let the paint dry overnight, i.e. if the whole process needs to happen in one go. What would you recommend? A hairdryer or a different kind of paint?
Yeah, I mean, the first question, and if we were working together in in a workshop or one-to-one, my invitation would be an inquiry into why the process needs to be faster. Is that a pattern of and I'm not asking you to answer that now, but that would be an inquiry. Is there a pattern of needing it to happen quickly? Is it a practical thing of like, well, I need to set up a space on my dining room table to do the painting, so it's great if I can do it and then clear it away and family can have dinner. My personal feeling is that it's great to sit with that initial painting for however long it needs to be. If you absolutely think I've got to transform this and I've got to do it right now. So let me think of an example. Say if I'm thinking I've just spoken to my mother on the phone. I'm now going to have to go and see her this evening. I really need to transform some stuff that's going on for me before I go and be with her. Then, yeah, I could get a canvas. I mean, acrylic paint dries pretty quickly. So depending on, how thick it's gone on, it could actually be dry in a couple of hours, and depending on the weather as well. And then I could go over and transform it and then go off, spend the evening with my mum, me being in a completely different place. Obviously, there's other ways to do that as well. Maybe I journal about it before I go. But if you wanted to use this practice, and for sure, you can dry acrylic paint with a hairdryer and it will dry really quickly. So you can do that. I would invite you into the inquiry of why is the speed and the quickness necessary.
I think you described exactly the situation I had in mind. Sometimes there is something that needs to be done now, and there's only a limited amount of time. Yeah. And I think for that respect, it really makes sense to then use a hairdryer. Thank you for the recommendation. Yeah. I didn't know that it was possible.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions or comments?
Well, yes, a really big thank you.
Oh,
that was so inspiring.
Bless you. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, go on, Sass. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I just want to remind people that submissions are open for the book project, and this would be a perfect, if you were struggling to know what you could submit, here we go. Here we go. How beautiful. Thank you so much for offering this to us.
Yeah. So yeah, just to remind people that, my contact details are on the presentation, and I would love to hear from you all how you've got on, how you feel that this is different from maybe your usual practice. If you've got any additional questions, or if you weren't on the live call and you have any additional questions, please do get in touch. I'm really, really happy to hear from you. I've offered this today for your personal use. If anybody is interested in going deeper into the practice and training as a transformational painting facilitator, then I am starting a course for that. So if it's something you're interested in using in your ministry, then yeah, please do get in touch. And as Sass mentioned, the One Spirit Interfaith Ministers in Connection. Did I get all those words in the right order? OSMIC, One Spirit Ministers in Connection. Book projects, the book collaboration is open for submissions, and I'm facilitating a 2-hour wild writing workshop on the 28th of June. I hope I got that date right. Reverend Sass is nodding. I have the nod from... Yes, excellent.
From 10 a.m. till 12 p.m.
10 a.m. till 12 on Wednesday, the 28th of June. And we will be, if you didn't manage to catch the last while writing session, this one won't be recorded, because we will be going a little bit deeper into the practice, and we'll be going into breakout rooms, and the idea being that letting this wild writing process like spark what is wanting to come through, maybe as a submission to the book project. Yeah, Car.
Sorry, can you tell me, is the course for going deeper into the inspirational or transformative painting, is that done online, or is that done in a group situation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually run that online, just simply because the people from different countries, it's much easier. And then so the Creative Spiritual Quest, Arts for Awakening, and the Transformational Painting Facilitators course are all online. And then we have an optional in-person gathering for anybody who wants it or can make it, but there's nothing at the in-person gathering that's extra from the course. So if online is how somebody can attend for whatever reason, then they won't miss anything by not coming to the optional in-person gathering. And if you're online, you're not getting charged for an in-person gathering that you're then not going to. So they're separate and not separate.
Find out about that. Maybe I'll speak to Sass or yourself when we get away.
Yeah, if you just drop me an email, that's fine. So submission deadline for the OSMIC book project is
the 31st of July.
Thank you. 31st of July.
We have like 7 weeks
for submissions to the book project, and we have the wild writing session at 10 till 12 on the 28th of June, and then Reverend April is also doing a OSMIC book session.
Yeah, bear with me. It is the 4th of July.
4th of July.
4th of July, and we're calling it a deep work session. So it's basically an online co-working session where you can bring whatever you're working on, whether it's painting, writing, poems, really doesn't matter. And we'll have a couple of rooms. One room will be silence, so you can just work in the presence of other people and just benefiting from the general energy going on. And we'll have another room where there'll be some light chatter, where it's more about the connection, inspiring ideas. So you will have at least myself and April. Pretty much myself and April wanted time, so we booked it in, and anyone else is welcome to join us. Thank you so much once again for all that you offer us, Rev Deb.
Oh, bless
you. Honestly,
so welcome.
Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And thank you for everyone coming along today, and everyone watching on YouTube as well. If you've got right to the end here, I did want to mention as well, for the kind people who do donate to us, due to, because we are all volunteers here. Genuinely, we are all volunteers. We do put a lot of work into trying to put on these events. We have a new bank account, so if you have donated to us before, we do have new details. They're all up on the website. And give me just a second. I will share in the chat, and it will be in YouTube in the comments. There we go. Bear with me. Here we
And
go.
just while Sass is doing that, yeah, for anything that's donated for this session or for the 2-hour wild writing session, I'm offering my facilitation for free. So be rest assured that anything you do donate, that goes straight to Osmic. And another thing I would say is, your presence here is the most important thing. I know there's times for all of us that have been struggle. So I wouldn't want anyone to think, oh, I can't manage to donate just now. I'd best not go. No, please come. Please come to these sessions. Very grateful for donations to Osmic. And if that's not possible right now, then we know that you'll send something when it is possible. So your presence here is what we love.
Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, a bit of feedback there. I hope you have a lovely Wednesday. Oh, I shall stop the recording. That's what I will do.